In 210 BCE, the most powerful man on Earth swallowed a silver liquid his doctors swore would let him live forever. It killed him. Qin Shi Huang, the emperor who united China, built the Great Wall and buried an army of terracotta soldiers, spent his final years eating poison by the spoonful. Number 14 on this list was so toxic his own alchemists died testing it on themselves. Number 3 is still sealed inside his tomb today, and scientists are afraid to dig it up. These 20 substances were meant to build a god. Instead, they drove an emperor mad and rotted him from the inside. Hit that subscribe button and let us count down the 20 deadly foods Qin Shi Huang devoured, chasing a forever he was never going to reach. Number 20. Cinnabar wine. In the palace at Xianyang, servants poured the emperor a cup of wine that glowed a strange, dull red. It was laced with ground cinnabar, the blood-colored mineral his alchemists called the mother of the elixir. Cinnabar is mercury sulfide, and to the men of the Qin court, its crimson color meant life, and its ability to shift and transform under fire meant immortality itself. The emperor drank it warm, believing every cup pushed death a little further back. What it actually did was flood his body with mercury. The Chinese had mined cinnabar since the Shang dynasty, but only for red pigment on bronze and lacquer. Qin Shi Huang was among the first to drink it on purpose, cup after cup, night after night, chasing an eternity that the mineral was quietly draining out of him one swallow at a time. Number 19. Powdered jade. Jade was the stone of heaven, the stone that never rotted. Nobles were buried in suits sewn from thousands of jade tiles because everyone believed the stone stopped the body from decaying. So the emperor's alchemists reasoned something simple and deadly. If jade preserves a corpse, what might it do inside a living man? They ground jade into a fine white powder, mixed it with dew or wine, and served it to Qin Shi Huang as a tonic against death. Swallowing powdered stone does nothing but scrape a man's insides and pass through him, and the impurities in the jade often carried their own poisons. But the logic was intoxicating. The emperor wanted to become incorruptible, and jade was the most incorruptible thing he could imagine. He ate the mountain, one spoon of white dust at a time, waiting to turn to stone himself. Number 18. Drinkable gold. Gold does not rust. Gold does not tarnish. Bury it for 1,000 years and dig it up gleaming. To the Qin alchemists, that was proof gold held the secret of the undying. So they tried to make it drinkable. They dissolved gold in harsh acids and mineral brews, or filed it into dust fine enough to sink into liquid, and handed the emperor a cup of what they called liquid gold. The belief was that a man who took incorruptible metal into his body would become incorruptible too. The reality was that the solvents used to break gold down were savage on the stomach and the kidneys, and heavy metals settled into his organs and stayed. Gold was the most expensive thing in the empire, and Qin Shi Huang was drinking it. He thought he was buying eternity. He was buying poison in its most beautiful form. Number 17. Realgar wine. Realgar is a bright orange-red crystal, and it is arsenic. Chinese healers had used it for centuries to drive off snakes and evil spirits, and it still shows up in the Dragon Boat Festival to this day. The Qin court took that folk protection and pushed it to a lethal extreme. They dissolved realgar into wine and gave it to the emperor as a shield against sickness and death. In small folk doses, realgar wine was a ward. In the amounts a man drinks who is trying to live forever, it was slow arsenic poisoning, hollowing out his nerves and turning his skin sick and gray. The alchemists genuinely believed the mineral's fierce color and its power over serpents meant power over mortality itself. Qin Shi Huang trusted them. He drank the orange wine, believing it made him harder to kill, while every cup made him easier to kill. Number 16. White lead. White lead was the beauty secret of the ancient world, a soft, pale powder that court women smeared on their faces to look flawless. But the Qin alchemists saw it as more than makeup. Lead was heavy, dense, permanent, and in their system of thinking, permanence meant life without end. So it went into the emperor's elixirs, ground into powders, and pressed into pills he swallowed to fortify his body against decay. Lead does the opposite of fortify. It attacks the brain and the nerves, brings on tremors, confusion, terrible moods, and paranoia. the kind of paranoia that makes a ruler see assassins in every shadow. And Qin Shi Huang, in his final years, became exactly that man, sleeping in a different palace every night, letting no one know where he was. Some of that terror was politics. Some of it, almost certainly, came out of the pills he was taking to feel safe. Number 15. Mica, the Cloud Mother. The Chinese called mica Cloud Mother because it split into thin, shining, almost weightless sheets that caught the light like frozen sky. To the alchemists, anything that looked that ethereal had to hold some heavenly virtue, so they flaked it, powdered it, and fed it to the emperor as a longevity food. Mica itself is not the fiercest poison on this list, but ground rock does not belong in a human body, and the deposits it came from were laced with lead and arsenic that rode along into every dose. The emperor took it because it looked like captured cloud, like something the immortals themselves might eat on their misty island of Penglai. He was trying to swallow the heavens. What actually went down was silica and stone that his body could neither use nor pass cleanly, layered on top of everything else already poisoning him. Number 14. Orpiment. If realgar was the orange arsenic, orpiment was the golden one, a brilliant yellow mineral that alchemists prized precisely because its color echoed gold. It was also one of the deadliest things in the entire Qin pharmacy, arsenic trisulfide, a poison so aggressive that the men handling it fell sick from the fumes alone. And here is the dark truth about the imperial workshop. Alchemists tested their elixirs before offering them to the emperor, and some who worked closest with orpiment and its cousins died doing it, sickened by the very cures they were brewing for their master. Qin Shi Huang never saw those deaths as a warning. If anything, a poison that fierce seemed powerful enough to be worth the danger. He took the golden mineral believing its color linked it to the undying metal, and every dose scarred his gut and poisoned his blood a little more. First pattern break. Here is where the story stops being about minerals and starts being about a system. None of this was random. Qin Shi Huang did not simply eat rocks because he was foolish. He was the customer of an entire industry called Waidan, external alchemy, a serious and respected craft with its own texts, its own masters, and its own brutal logic. The core belief was elegant and completely wrong. Things that resist decay in nature, gold, jade, cinnabar, must carry a hidden power to stop decay in a man. So the alchemists gathered the most permanent, most striking substances they could find, cooked them in sealed vessels, and called the result the elixir of life. The tragedy is that the most chemically active, most transformable minerals they could find, the ones that seemed most alive, were mercury, arsenic, and lead. The Qin alchemists mistook the shimmer of poison for the shimmer of eternity, and their most important client had unlimited money and an unlimited fear of dying. Number 13. Sulfur pills. Sulfur burns. It smells of the underworld, it flares yellow and violent, and it was one of the pillars of Chinese alchemy for exactly that reason. Anything with that much raw energy, the alchemists reasoned, had to carry a life force that could be transferred into the body. They combined sulfur with mercury, cooked it, cooled it, and rolled it into small dark pills the emperor swallowed to stoke his inner fire and hold off old age. Sulfur compounds in those doses are corrosive and toxic, tearing at the digestive tract and, married to mercury, forming compounds that lingered in the tissue. The emperor took his fire pills faithfully, believing the burning meant it was working. Centuries later, this same sulfur and saltpeter alchemy would accidentally give China gunpowder. The men chasing immortality never found it. They found an explosive instead, which is about the darkest joke in the history of the search for eternal life. Number 12. Saltpeter. Saltpeter, or niter, was the sharp white mineral that scraped off cave walls and old latrines, and it turned up constantly in the alchemists' furnaces. They valued it because it made other substances react, flare, and change was the whole point. If you could transform a mineral in the crucible, maybe you could transform a man on his deathbed. So saltpeter went into the emperor's brews as a kind of catalyst of eternity, meant to unlock the powers of the heavier poisons around it. On its own, it wrenched the gut and forced the body to work overtime, flushing it out. In the mixtures the Qin court favored, it simply helped the mercury and arsenic do their work more efficiently. Qin Shi Huang was, without knowing it, funding some of the earliest true chemistry on Earth. He was also serving as its most powerful test subject, and the experiment was slowly failing inside his own body. Number 11. Malachite. Malachite is a gorgeous green stone, banded and swirling like something out of a dream, and for that beauty alone the alchemists were sure it held virtue. It is a copper mineral, and copper in the amounts the emperor was fed is a real poison, wrecking the liver and turning a man weak and sick. But the Qin workshops loved malachite because its deep, living green suggested growth, spring, renewal, the exact things a dying emperor was desperate to buy back. They ground it into their elixirs and passed it up to the throne as a stone of vitality. Every dose was a small load of copper his liver had to fight. Layer that on top of the mercury, the arsenic, the lead already inside him, and you have a body being attacked on a dozen fronts at once, all of it swallowed willingly, all of it labeled as medicine, all of it beautiful. Number 10. Lingji, the deathless mushroom. Not everything the emperor chased was mineral, and not everything was poison. Lingji, the reishi mushroom, was the great exception, a hard, shiny, reddish fungus that grew on old trees and was believed to grant immortality to anyone who ate it. Unlike the cinnabar and the arsenic, Lingji would not have killed him. It has been used in Chinese medicine for thousands of years and is still sold today. But that is what made it so dangerous to his sanity. Qin Shi Huang became convinced that somewhere, on some sacred mountain or hidden island, grew the perfect specimen that would end death forever. He sent expeditions across the empire to find it. He poured a fortune into the hunt. The mushroom itself was harmless. The obsession it fed was not, because it kept him certain, right up to the end, that eternal life was real and just out of reach. Number 9. Deer antler velvet. Every spring, a deer grows new antlers coated in soft, blood-rich velvet, sheds them, and grows them again. To the ancient Chinese, that was one of the most astonishing things in nature, a body part that died and regenerated on a schedule. If a deer could regrow a lost part every single year, the alchemists asked, what might its power do for a man trying to renew his failing body? So deer antler velvet was harvested, dried, ground, and mixed into the emperor's tonics as a fountain of regeneration. Of all the things on this list, this one at least had a logic that pointed at something real, the mystery of tissue renewal. But it was no cure for death, and in the emperor's regimen it was just one more ingredient stirred in with the mercury and the arsenic. He ate the deer's power hoping to grow himself back, the way an antler grows back, forever. Second pattern break. Here is the part the terracotta warriors cannot tell you. Why would the strongest man in the world spend his final years swallowing poison? Because he was terrified, and he had reason to be. He had survived at least 3 assassination attempts. He had conquered 6 kingdoms and made enough enemies to fill an underworld, which is roughly what his tomb was built to do. And having gained absolute power over the entire known world, he faced the one enemy he could not conquer, defeat, or bribe. Death did not care that he was emperor. So he sent his famous alchemist Zhu Fu east across the sea with thousands of young men and women to find the immortals of Penglai and beg them for the elixir. Zhu Fu sailed away and never came back. Some legends say he founded a colony rather than return empty-handed and face execution. The emperor waited for a ship that would never arrive, and while he waited, he kept drinking. The fear of death is what poisoned him, not the minerals. The minerals were only the delivery system. Number 8. Pine resin and pine seeds. The pine tree stays green all winter while everything around it dies, and it lives for centuries. To the ancient Chinese, that was practically a promise. So the sticky resin that bleeds from a pine, along with its seeds and needles, became a longevity food, gathered and eaten by hermits and emperors alike who wanted to borrow the tree's endurance. Pine resin is one of the gentler items in the emperor's diet, and by itself, it would not have done much harm. But it points at the whole doomed philosophy driving him. Find something that outlasts human life, and eat it, and maybe you outlast human life too. He chewed the evergreen, believing its stubborn refusal to die in winter could be swallowed and made his own. The pine kept living for 1,000 years. Qin Shi Huang did not make it to 50. Number 7. Ephedra, the yellow stem. Ephedra, called Ma Huang, is a scrubby desert plant that the Chinese had used for ages to clear the lungs and lift a tired body. It works because it is a powerful stimulant, close cousin to the compounds that keep a modern heart racing, and that jolt is exactly why it entered the emperor's regimen. A man being slowly poisoned by mercury and lead feels exhausted, foggy, and weak. Ephedra could punch through that fog for a few hours, quicken his pulse, sharpen his focus, and make him feel, for a little while, powerful and alive again. That false vitality was cruel. It masked how sick he was getting, and it drove an already strained heart harder while the heavy metals were wearing it down. He took the yellow stem to feel like a god. It only borrowed energy from a body that had less and less left to lend, and charged interest on every dose. Number 6. Aconite, the poison root. Aconite is one of the most poisonous plants in all of Chinese medicine, so toxic that healers to this day have to process it carefully or it can stop a heart outright. And that ferocity is precisely why the alchemists reached for it. A substance that powerful, they reasoned, must be able to blast sickness and even death out of the body if it could just be tamed. So aconite root was boiled, treated, and folded into the emperor's stronger elixirs in tiny, dangerous amounts, a poison meant to fight the greater poison of mortality. Get the dose slightly wrong, and it burns the mouth, numbs the limbs, throws the heart into chaos. The emperor's alchemists were essentially performing live experiments on the one patient they could not afford to lose. Huang swallowed the poison root, trusting them completely, betting his heartbeat on their measuring hands, meal after meal. Number 5. Toad venom. There is a gland behind a toad's eyes that oozes a milky poison, and the Chinese learned to scrape it, dry it, and use it as one of the most potent substances in their entire medicine chest. It is genuinely cardioactive, meaning it acts directly on the human heart, which made it both a real drug and a real killer depending on the dose. The alchemists prized it exactly because it was so obviously powerful. Something that could seize the heart had to hold sway over life and death. Dried toad venom went into the emperor's most serious immortality preparations, another fierce ingredient meant to shock his body into refusing to die. In careful hands, it can steady a struggling heart. In careless hands, it stops one. Huang was taking heart poison alongside mercury, arsenic, lead, and aconite, and asking all of it together to make him live forever. Third pattern break. Here is what all of it was doing to him. Picture the emperor in his final years. The mercury alone would have been enough to unmake a man. Chronic mercury poisoning brings tremors in the hands, a shuffling walk, black teeth and bleeding gums, sleeplessness, wild mood swings, and a creeping paranoia that curdles into madness. The lead added its own confusion and rage. The arsenic thinned him and grayed his skin. And this was the ruler of an empire, growing stranger and more frightened by the month, ordering more elixirs to fix the very symptoms the elixirs were causing. It is one of the darkest feedback loops in history. He felt himself failing, so he took more medicine. The medicine was the poison. The poison made him fail faster. Every cure was a cause, and no one in the workshop dared tell the most dangerous man alive that the thing he wanted most was the thing killing him. Number 4. Purified arsenic. The alchemists were not satisfied with arsenic in its raw mineral forms. They roasted realgar and orpiment to drive off the sulfur and leave behind something purer, closer to what we now call white arsenic, a plain-looking powder that is one of the most notorious poisons ever known. To their eyes, this refining was progress. They had taken a rough stone and cooked it down to its essence, and surely the essence was more potent, more capable of granting the life without end they promised. It was more potent. It was more capable of killing. Odorless, nearly tasteless, easy to hide in food or wine, purified arsenic was a murderer's dream, and the emperor was feeding it to himself as a tonic. He believed he was drinking the concentrated soul of a powerful mineral. He was drinking one of the deadliest substances the ancient world ever produced, distilled and handed to him on a tray. Number 3. The mercury he drank straight. Cinnabar was the mineral, but the alchemists had learned to heat it and coax out the shining liquid metal hiding inside, quicksilver, mercury itself, a silver river that flowed and split and rejoined and seemed, to ancient eyes, unmistakably alive. Nothing else in nature behaved like it. And so mercury became the crown jewel of the immortality quest. and the emperor is believed to have taken it directly, the pure liquid metal, in his most desperate elixirs. This is the substance sealed inside his tomb to this day. Ancient records describe rivers of mercury flowing across a map of his empire in the burial chamber, and modern soil tests around the Great Mound near Xi'an really do show mercury levels far above normal, which is a large part of why the central tomb has never been opened. It is a poisoned monument. He surrounded himself with mercury in death because he had filled himself with it in life. Number 2. The Grand Elixir. Everything on this list was building toward one thing, the Jindan, the great golden cinnabar elixir that was supposed to be the masterpiece of the whole art. This was not a casual tonic. It was the culmination, brewed in sealed vessels over long, secret processes, combining the most prized and most poisonous substances the alchemists commanded, mercury above all, cooked and recombined in the belief that the cycle mirrored the eternal renewal of the cosmos. To swallow the finished grand elixir was to swallow the universe's own recipe for endlessness. Emperors after Qin Shi Huang would chase this same golden pill for centuries, and it would kill a shocking number of them, several Tang dynasty rulers among the most famous victims. He was the first great emperor to bet his life on it. The grand elixir was the finest thing his alchemists could make. It was also, essentially, a perfected dose of mercury. Number 1. The Final Pill. In 210 BCE, on a tour through the eastern reaches of his empire, Qin Shi Huang died. He was 49 years old, the most powerful man on earth, the unifier of China, the builder of walls and armies and roads, was killed by the very thing he swallowed to escape death. The mercury he had been drinking for years, the arsenic, the lead, all of it finally collected its debt on the road, far from home. And the ending is grim beyond the poison. His death was hidden by his ministers to prevent chaos, and as his body traveled back to the capital in the summer heat, it began to rot. To disguise the smell of the decaying emperor, they packed carts of salted fish around his carriage. The man who ate a fortune in poison to become immortal came home as a corpse, hidden behind dead fish. He wanted to never decay. He decayed on a cart, and the empire drove on without him. Here is the thought I cannot shake. Qin Shi Huang had everything a human being could want, and it was not enough, because he could not buy one more day at the end. Every emperor and pharaoh and king who chased eternal life learned the same lesson he did, usually the hard way, usually from the cure. So tell me in the comments, if you had his power and his fear, would you have drunk the silver metal too? Because the terracotta army is still standing guard. The mercury is still sealed in the ground. And the man who ate poison to live forever has been gone for more than 2,000 years.